We're going to talk the anatomy principles. That's what we're focused on for the last few weeks and for the next few weeks. There's 8 of them that I've identified working clinically, and I'm committed to sharing all 8 of them with you in our Tuesday training adventures. This week, we're talking about anatomy principle number 1, which might seem a little peculiar since last week we already started about anatomy principles, but here's why. Last week, we started with, you guys might remember, stretching doesn't exist. Yeah, it's like the most provocative of all of the anatomy principles. I figure if you're here for that conversation and you liked that and you came back for more, you're in, babe. And the next 7 principles are going to work for you, because if that one kept your interest, well, then great. The rest of them are just going to file right in. If that one didn't keep your interest and you're like, this girl's, I don't know, she's off her rocker, well, then you're probably not back again, and that's okay. But stretching doesn't exist is also one of the most immediate, straight away, like out of the gate, go apply it. Like, and it usually means like stop doing what you're doing instead of do it this way. The rest of the anatomy principles are a little bit more like, okay, well then how do I actually do that? So it takes a little bit more, I guess, thoughtfulness. None of them are hard. They're all pretty straightforward. And when you hear them, you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. In fact, what I've heard the most about these principles is like, well, none of it was a foreign language. I actually knew all of them, but I didn't know them in that context, or I hadn't seen them from that lens, and that really landed for me. That's what I hear a lot of folks say. So that's my intention for all of us here on Tuesday training, to also have that like, oh, it landed for me and now I'm going to do something different. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host for the hour, Gina Schatz. I know a thing or two about being a body worker because I've been at it for 31 years. And these principles that I'm about to share with you, I didn't realize I had identified as principles. They just were what I started sort of collating about the body and its mechanics, and what I needed to learn to resolve, chronic pain and create osteo type results, real orthopedic type corrections. So that's who I am. And if you're here for the 100th time, welcome back, my friends. I'm so glad to see you. We're going to work together just like in the same format we did last week. I'm going to talk for 30 minutes, not too fast, but I'm going to give you a bunch of data, boop, 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 run it through this principle. And then we're going to open up the phone lines, if you will, for 30 minutes of Q&A. So please feel free to bring all of your questions. They don't have to be on the principle. Of course, if you do have questions on the principle, let me know that, because it helps me really make sure I'm super clear that you have the ability to utilize the principle. That matters to me as well. Hey, Cheryl, glad you're here. Rhonda, I don't know if I said hi when you came in. Hello. Gary, I saw you popping in the back as well. Maybe it's your camera again today. I don't know. I thought you figured that out. Hope to see you if you're able to come on camera. And if not, super glad you're here in the back. Oh, there he is, coming in again. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna pour into you for about 30 minutes and then open it up for you guys to ask me any questions. They don't have to be on the principle. It could be on any question that you have. I'm here for that for you, to serve and support you while we're here together for our hour. Ready to get into it? Here we go. All right. Movement principle number 1. Muscles move bone. Muscles move bone. Some people are like, yeah, duh, got it. And hang on with me. I'm going to hopefully give you something that you haven't considered before on this particular principle. The basis of this principle is needed if and when you are working with compensation or any recruitment patterns. The basis of this principle is needed for that. Because when we are recognizing compensation patterns and applying this principle, what it usually means is that the muscle that's supposed to be moving the bone, either the movement hasn't been identified, or the muscle to do it hasn't been identified, or we moved in an inoptimal direction. All of that leads to compensation patterns. So again, if you're working with compensation patterns in the bodies that you serve, this principle will shed some light on how to make that crystal clear for you. And the reason for the clarity is so that you work more efficiently, right? You get more done in the time that you have with the people that you serve. Muscles move bone also applies to recruitment. So if we know what muscles moving what bone and what movement we're intending to create, and we're super clear about that, then there won't be any recruitment, because the muscle that's supposed to do the job will do the job. The bone that's supposed to move will move, and the movement will be optimal as far as we're designed to move. But as soon as we find that we're navigating a recruitment pattern in someone's body, like it looks like they're doing the thing, but they're kind of doing this other thing to do the thing, you're probably in a recruitment pattern, if not a compensation pattern or both. And so this principle really helps drive right through that. Yeah, Rhonda, questions out of the gate.
So what's the difference between a compensation pattern and recruitment?
Love it. What do you think?
Compensation patterns recruit other muscles to do the job that they can't do. So that's why I'm confused.
Well, you just said it though. You started to say it. They're two different things. Compensation patterns on their own do this thing called recruiting other muscles to help do the job. They're not the same.
Please expand.
All right. Anybody else want to expand on this one? I know we've talked about it before. Anybody else here have any clarity to offer for Rhonda? No. Okay. Shots method practitioners, I wonder why. What is the difference? Anna, Cheryl, hey, darling. Yes. She's like, I got it. I got it.
Well, I think compensation patterns are patterns that you have been doing for a while that's set in the body, right? So recruitment is when you have those compensation patterns, you're recruiting other muscles that are doing that compensation. Like they feed into each other, but they're different.
They are different.
Yeah, I don't know if I explained that very clearly, but it seems one feeds the other.
Thanks, Cheryl. I love it. Anna, you have something else to add?
Yeah, I was thinking of walking, so gait. And if you're not recruiting the key muscle that takes your leg back behind you, being the glute max, so you're not recruiting that one properly, engaging it. So that means that your hamstrings, your QL are going to get recruited to form this pattern that has you move forward in gait, but it's not how you should be moving forward properly when you're walking. So you created a compensatory pattern.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Cheryl. Lana says, is recruiting what should be going on and compensating not so good? Not exactly. So I'm hesitating because if I start talking about it, we're going to talk the whole hour about that. And I wanted to get into this principle, but that's okay. If we can't get past this, then the principle won't really serve us as well. So let me do my best to make it quick. And I love that the question's coming up because it means you do want to understand this area of our work that we do when it goes wrong, right? So I've said this before, in order for us to resolve musculoskeletal discrepancies and create therapeutic results, we have to be steeped in anatomy and functional anatomy, what the parts are and how they work. You've got to be steeped in that because when a client comes to us with a problem, the problem is outside of that optimal design, optimal function. When they come to us with those symptoms and that chief complaint, we've got to be able to recognize this is not the way it's supposed to be. And how is it supposed to be? And then be steeped in skill to be able to return them back to that. Oftentimes what happens is something's off, we don't know exactly what's off, we're not exactly sure how to get it back, and we don't know where we're taking it back to. And then it's just like a whole lot of busy work and stress and lack of confidence, and then we just sort of spin out. So I do appreciate the question, absolutely. And it's a whole other body of learning. So if you want to learn about compensation patterns and recruitment to the full extent that they have available to you to learn from, then it does require more than an hour of teaching for sure. So let me give it to you as briefly as I can. It's not that anything's good or bad, right? Again, I really want us to get past this, well, this is bad and this is good when it comes to the body, or the body's bad because it's doing that, or this body part is bad because it does this. I really want us to get away from that. all that we're really wanting to conclude is that the body is still communicating with us. And that's a good thing. Thank God, because if we knew how much it's actually enduring by our poor performance, poor alignment, and poor function that we're not privy to because it never gives us the message that it's upset, we would be much more reverent than we are when we default into, well, that body part is XYZ bad, or that situation in the body is bad. Okay, so we don't want to do that anymore. Neither one of them are good or bad. We're glad that they're there, and they're a little bit complex. So compensatory patterns are largely when the body can't do what it's designed to do, but it gets the job done anyway. Come heck or high water, it just figures it out. But know that that means that lots of body parts who were not intended or designed for that job are now doing a job, which is got a slow bandwidth of lifespan available to it, for one. And also, because of that short lifespan and body parts can come in to do the thing, but they're not meant to, that usually means that there's going to be symptoms shortly thereafter. Recruitment is a couple things. Recruitment is I'm drawing on another muscle to do the job, like we just said in a compensatory pattern. That's probably where you guys are getting them blurred when you think that they're the same, but they're different, but they're the same, but they're different, but they're the same. You can recruit another muscle to do that new pattern, which is not the optimal pattern by design. It's the pattern that's needed right now. Think about it. When you're walking around on crutches, when you've rolled an ankle and you can't bear your weight on equally on both legs, you're compensating gait, optimal gait, to still get across the room, but not really the way you're designed. You're not even bearing your weight equally on both feet, designed with two legs, both do the same thing, right? So there's a compensatory action happening in gait. And am I also recruiting another muscle on the leg I can walk on, or in the hip that's bearing the weight load? Probably. There's also another version of recruitment, though, which is that I'm not strong enough to do this job and I have to get it done. That's where straight up movement providers, those of you who are here who are doing lots of movement and alignment and visual assessment on that, we don't need to shrug our shoulders to stretch our hamstrings. And yet, how many clients do you see doing that? Right? Or they'll shrug their shoulders to do a bench press, even though that's for pecs, not upper traps. What's with that extra thing, right? It's because we're doing something called recruitment, where we borrow power from an adjacent or nearby muscle to add power to the job we're not strong enough to do. And there's lots of other versions and iterations of recruitment. Again, more than I can share with you in just an hour. And I want us to get through the principle. But there is a distinctive difference between the two. One is straight up, I would call it muscle power, and I would put compensation more into patterning. How do I do this job overall? What does it look like? And what muscles am I using to make that happen? Rhonda, does that answer it for you enough to move into the principle? Beautiful. Any other questions? Thanks for making that a community effort to get the answer in, guys. Okay. I want us to give enough time for Q&A at the end too. So I'm going to go in, and please let me know if you have any other questions. Hopefully I will share only information that you already know, and your mirror neurons won't need pattern interrupt, which is so good. I love that when we uncover new information. I also believe that we have I can't think of which video it is right now, but I know we have a training on this in Tuesday training. So you'll probably find it under the functional anatomy playlist in the YouTube channel for compensation patterns, and even recruitment. The recruitment one I know is a lot older though. All right. Movement principle number 1, muscles move bone. Especially if you're dealing with any of the aforementioned compensation patterns or recruitment, you probably want to know this principle because it will help you. Now we know what those are, which is great. All right. Bones move where muscles take them. It's not the other way around. Bones move where muscles take them. It's not the other way around. So when we start diving into ideas about, well, this person's out of alignment and, you know, their bones really this and their bones really that, and so maybe we need a chiropractor to intervene here because I have a client with XYZ. I'm going to ask us to pause now because now we have this principle, fertile and ready, the first one. Is it that the bones are out of place and you need to partner with a chiropractor to get the job done of alleviating your client's pain? Or is it that you get to address the muscles that moved those bones into that new arrangement? Which, by the way, a chiropractor doesn't do. Chiropractors work bones, body workers work muscles. So why would we send them to a modality that isn't even designed to do the job that's needed, which is to address the muscles that move those bones? So if you are someone who works with misalignment, think about that. We do that a lot in our method. And when bones are out of alignment, we have a body of work that we call probable cause. What's probably causing that bone to be adjacent to the other bone in the arrangement that it is, not how it's designed, but how it's now showing up. And probable cause is always a muscle. Probable cause is not the bone. The bone's a problem and it's out of place. But we have this anatomy principle, but the muscles moved the bone. Which muscles? What were they doing? Were they compensating? Some compensation pattern is needed, right? If I've rolled my ankle and I can't bear weight on both feet, but I need to walk across the room, I need to compensate to get to the bathroom. I need to hobble to get there. Some compensation patterns are needed, not permanently though. But because we know that the brain lays down patterns, they can become permanent, and that's the problem. Not the immediacy of like the body will do what I've asked it to do, and that's a good thing. That compensation pattern that my body figured out how to hustle my booty across the room to take care of business is a good thing. I don't want to be mad at the compensation pattern, but I want to be aware that it's there because it's not meant to last. Depending on how long it takes me to heal my bum ankle, I've now laid down tracks of memorizing this now compensation pattern, which isn't just going to disappear when I stop using it. The tracks have been laid. That's the problem. Not that the compensation pattern came to begin with, but that it stayed. So that's where we come into play. Gary?
So if you find a compensation pattern due to an injury
Uh-huh.
and supposedly the injury is healed, but the pattern is still there,
Mhm.
what's the mechanism that the body uses saying, oh, we don't need to recruit these muscles anymore. We can let that go and go back to using the muscles that the ankle used originally.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple. It is pretty straightforward, but it's the second touchstone of the shots method. It's an entire touchstone on how to do that. We call it repatterning. You have to repattern the neural
Okay.
pathways for that. It's not just like, I don't need you anymore, I'm done with you, taking you out to the curb for trash. You got to repattern the pattern.
But does the body do that naturally anyway? People who don't come to us, they injure their ankle, they're fine, they're not compensating, they don't have any extra symptoms. Does that mean the body has now let go of those patterns so that the regular alignment is there?
Well, not really.
Or is it always, once a compensating pattern is there, it stays there?
It's something in the middle. So
Okay.
nothing's black and white and fixed when
Okay.
it comes to the body.
Mhm.
The body doesn't need the pattern anymore, so maybe it's not being utilized. However, the body is not the determiner of the pattern. The brain is.
Right, okay. Mhm.
Yeah.
So further, what's going on in the brain? I mean, that's kind of like what originally I asked.
Yeah, it's what's going on in the mind-body connection, in
Yeah.
the neural pathway connection to the
Mhm.
motor
Yeah.
event.
Mhm.
Both have to be addressed. To do the
Okay.
job thoroughly, both have to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so when there's a misalignment, for those of you who do structural measurements and things like that, and if you don't, that's okay, you can learn them, we learn them. We want to be thoughtful that a structural misalignment has a muscles move bone principle with it. So even if you refer that out to a chiropractor who addressed the muscles that did the job. And then the question is, again, we're in the compensatory recruitment land. Why did that muscle do what it did? not how it's designed, that then moved this bone into this position that it's in, not where it's designed. Why did that happen? Also gets to be addressed. We could stop here. We could make movement principle number 1 be the only one and actually get to all the other principles, believe it or not. We're just going to address them all one by one because I think it's an easier digestion. Otherwise, it's like the whole method. Figure out the shots method, go and run for it. And understanding them part by part really helps. But even as we talked last week about movement principle number 4, that the action is contraction, now we're on to muscles move bone. We said action is contraction because stretching doesn't exist. Remember that? Now we're on to muscles move bone, and we know that the muscle moved the bone by way of contraction, not by stretching. So how did that happen? Is there something going on there? These are all rhetorical questions for the moment until we get through all of the principles, and that's why I said it takes a little bit more thoughtfulness when you're working through the rest of the principles, because then you're at the place where your question came from, Gary. Well, what about if it's this in the body? Well, what about if it's that? What about if the body had to do this to do that, to get that because of that? Exactly. And we get to answer all of that as we're in service to someone. If that's not the kind of work that you do, you're probably not here, because that's the work that I do, right? And to do that work, as I said at the beginning, and I will continue to say, it requires a ton of training, guys. You got to have a thorough understanding of anatomy, functional anatomy, top-notch skill to be able to correct anything, and then to know where to correct it back to. That takes some training. So it is an advanced way of working, and that's great. I know you guys are all here for it. That's why you keep showing up, and I'm here for it. That's why I keep showing up too. So as we think about muscles move bone, and you're applying that principle to structural alignment, again, think about the fact that muscles moved the bone. What caused that bone to move? It was a muscle. And what caused that muscle to behave that way? If you can answer that, you can get to the solution. So stay there until you can answer that. When it comes to external alignment, though, external alignment meaning like, where is the body in space? Am I sitting with 4 curves of my spine? Is my leg behind me equal on the right as it is on the left when I'm lunging? Are both shoulders flexing equally when I'm resisting weight in the gym? Is my pigeon pose on one side the same as it is on the other side? Or can I only do something unilaterally but not bilaterally, even though my appendages are designed exactly the same? So that's the external alignment, right? Like, how does it look in space? And for those of you who are manual practitioners, this still applies, because your people come to you with discomfort because the movement that they were doing wasn't symmetrical, wasn't equal power on both sides, wasn't equally aligned on both sides externally. And whatever they were doing in movement was either too fast to be able to calibrate all of that, again, because the brain's part of the party there, or the movement provider that they were with didn't have this information, and so they didn't catch it, right? But if you're a movement person, you're going to catch it. If you're a manual person, you need to catch it, because otherwise your client wouldn't have come to you with this discomfort if it was handled while they were moving. Something in the moving goes wrong that equals musculoskeletal pain and discomfort. Our job as manual practitioners is to figure out what that is, not to have the person lay passively for an hour on the table, do all the manhandling for them, and then they get up and move exactly how they moved on the way in that caused the pain in the first place. That's not helping. It is, but it's not solving it. So to me, helping is like, solve it, right? Okay, so when we're thinking about external alignment, like where the bones are in space, we know that muscles moved them there. Muscles need to work equally, right? One glute max has to work the same as the other glute max. Otherwise, there's an imbalance in the power of that muscle, which means every bone that it moves is going to be affected differently on one side than the other. Can't have that. Body's built symmetrically. How are we designed? We need to return it back to that. We also know about muscles that when muscles are doing their job, their action, I've said, is contraction. The job of a muscle, oh, I barely got that out. The job of a muscle is to contract. Okay. So if the muscle's job is to contract, we need to know that the nature of contraction is pull, not push. Muscles don't push things, they pull. They pull on them. So as you're trying to find this probable cause, you're looking for who's doing the pulling, not what pushed it out of the way. Muscles don't push things out of the way, they pull when they contract. Okay, so we want to know, this is all part of this principle, right? If we know the nature of how things work and we apply the principle to the nature of how it works, then we get really clear and less confused about, well, what am I actually looking for here? Well, this is what you're looking for, and use your anatomy to walk you through it. The way that contraction happens in a muscle is that the nervous system, so now we're back to connecting lots of parts, lots of different body parts. It's very challenging, guys, to even share like a sliver of information with you, because like, where do you put the bookend, right? There's no silo in the body. And one of our anatomy principles is about the nervous system. We've already brought it up organically 3 times today, because that's how yoked they all are. Again, one principle would have been plenty, but let's do our best to just borrow a little bit, recruit some information from that other principle. Let us use it to get deeper on this one, and then they'll all come together at the end. So the way that muscle contracts is the nervous system triggers a whole chemical cocktail, a whole chemical reaction in the fibers of the muscles, and it reorganizes proteins and does a whole bunch of other stuff. If you're into organic biology, you probably love that. I loved the word organic. I didn't love the whole journey through that coursework, but I'm happy that I got it and I get the gist of it now. But if you want all that chemical, math to back up this information, I'm not your girl, but I know you can find it, because it's not an idea. It's actually been found, and you'll just want to look that up. But it is magical, like how the body figures out to add all these moving parts in this perfectly timed symphony of exchange to get a contraction to happen is like, yeah, I'm never going to complain anymore that muscle is tight. My goodness, everything that had to happen without my input to get that to happen is like a moment of awe and reverence. So I'm good with a muscle being tight. I'm really good with that. And you get to know that a whole bunch is going on, okay? When all that symphony happens and the muscle is contracted, it will have an effect on the bone that it attaches to, because muscles move bone. But not all contraction is equal. And I'm not talking about eccentric versus concentric versus isometric contraction. What I'm talking about is that contraction, as it's wired from the brain, is shortness and tension in the fibers that chemical cocktail happened to. Ooh, shouldn't end a sentence with a preposition, but I did it. So whatever that chemical cocktail was, it then equaled in the muscle tension and shortness of those fibers. They slide on each other. The filaments slide back and forth. They slide towards each other, though, towards the belly of the muscle as a prompt from the brain. We talked about that when we talked about stretching last week. And still, muscles can be short and not have tension on them. It's called being on the slack. That would have an effect on the bones that they're attached to. The fibers are short, not allowing the bones to freely move in their full range, but there's no tension on the muscles. So then what do I do? Exactly, Gary. I saw you go, what do I do? Exactly. That's this principle. It leads you into this conversation around compensatory patterns and recruited muscles. When you know this principle and we iron it out the way I'm ironing it out with you, it starts leading into, maybe that's what happened. It wasn't just a straight up, perfectly symphonied contraction. Something else is going on here. How the body's designed, how it works, when it all goes awry. We're in that when it all goes awry. How it's designed is muscles move bone. But what about when it goes awry? They still move bone. But now how? Okay, so now we're starting to get into like, this is I'm already feeling uncomfortable. No wonder the body's presenting with discomfort. Exactly, exactly. Muscles can also have tension in them and not be short. For those of you who are movement providers, you know that. You can create tension in a muscle, and it doesn't mean that any joint action occurred or that the belly of the muscle got bigger. We know that to be one of the ways we know that to be is called isometric, right? Where you're just sort of contracting but not shortening anything. Muscles can get hijacked a little bit. They can be responding to these compensatory and recruitment phases where they can have tension in them, but it doesn't mean it's contracted. That tension is still having an effect on the bone that the muscle's attached to, but it's having a different effect than just a straight up designed lever system contraction, where the chemical reaction means that origin and insertion move toward each other, the belly of the muscle gets bigger, and then it reverses when the lever system's actions change as well. So we want to know that, especially if you are one of those people who says the 5-letter word, it's tight, 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 tight. I beg of you, identify what kind of tightness, because that will have a different reaction to the bone that those muscles are connected to, because muscles move bone. Whatever the muscle's doing is affecting the bone. If you're not clear yet on the tightness types, I think we have a whole playlist actually on tightness types on the YouTube channel. So please go back and get really clear on what all those different types of tightnesses are. Those types of tightnesses that we outline, again, I don't do eccentric and concentric. That's not what I'm up to. I'm talking about the type of tightness in the orthopedic lane, in the compensatory lane, when it all goes a little awry and your clients are uncomfortable. Eccentric and concentric and isometric contractions aren't meant to equal pain and discomfort. I always lead to my conversations into when there is pain and discomfort. I want to eradicate that so they can go back to doing all the different types of contraction that are available. So we're talking muscle tightness, like the type that need to be eradicated. Okay, so go back and look at those if you still need some support on that. It's available for you. So the type of tightness, or excuse me, the type of contraction, not the type of tightness, but the type of contraction that the body's designed with for lever system action of moving a bone that the muscle is connected to is when the muscle becomes short, the origin and insertion move towards each other, and there's tension in that action. When you're addressing this principle, muscles move bone, and you're a movement provider, you want to address it from that lens. Is this muscle shortening because its action is contraction and it's creating tension in that muscle at the same time? If it's just tense but not shortened, it's probably compensatory tightness as an idea. Okay, so you want to know that muscles move bone by origin and insertion moving toward each other. The muscle gets shorter, the belly of the muscle gets bigger, and then something's moved. The bone that it's connected to, because muscles move bone. What we want is for both of those things to be happening at the same time. The fibers are moving and the muscles getting shorter and the tension is increasing simultaneously, because that's how it's designed, not one or the other. If it's one or the other, you get to put your discernment cap on and figure out what's causing that. That's the compensatory we're talking about, or the recruitment that we were talking about. Okay, when you know, this is the last thing that I'll share with you guys about this principle, and then we'll open it up for more questions. I love that you guys are all being very thoughtful. I can tell there's probably questions brewing, which is great. When we're talking about this external alignment, meaning how the body's moving in space, where the bones are relative to each other, how far back was my lunge on the left versus my right, that kind of external alignment, knowing which muscle does the job, knowing which muscle moves the bone to that distance that you're measuring. How far back did my leg move? The leg didn't move. The muscles contracted and pulled that bone to that position. The leg didn't move, unless you're considering that the leg is made up of both bone and muscle. They work together. The muscles and the bones work together to create the movement. The bone didn't move by itself and the muscle didn't move by itself. But the muscle caused the bone to move, not the other way around. Okay. When we're doing movement practices, whether we're the movement provider or we're checking on our client's pattern as a manual practitioner so that they can go move well, when we know which muscle does the job, and we're clear on that, and we're clear on how it's contracting, getting shorter and generating tension at the same time, we're less likely to create alignment mistakes in our instruction as movement providers, and we're more inclined to offer a simple and effective correction to our client as a manual practitioner that they can take into their movement practices. It's not that complicated once you know the anatomy. So I have to keep correcting myself now because had a conversation recently with some shots method practitioners who are high level and thoughtful. And I said probably twice in the conversation, it's really simple. It's really simple. And I was corrected. It's not that simple. It was easy for you, Gina, but we have to do some catching up to do, which I totally appreciate. So once you have the anatomy and you're clear on the design and how it really works, and then you're also clear on the nature of things like compensatory patterns and recruitment, and when it all goes wrong, you can see that clearly, then it's simple to return them back. And I appreciate that takes a journey to get to both really thoroughly. I appreciate that. And I promise you, it doesn't take forever, or I wouldn't be here right now sharing it with you. So it doesn't take forever, but I get it. It's probably going to be more than, if this is the first time you're hearing about some of these concepts, it'll be more than today's hour. I get that. And remember that it is simple, though. It might not feel simple for you in this moment in time, and let that not take you out of the race. Because if you're hungry for it to be simple, and this resonates as truth for you, and you just know you're just 3 feet from gold, you get to keep pushing through until you mine that gold. Don't give up. If you're like, I don't know what she's talking about, I don't like any of this, I'm checking my watch and my cuticles, then you're not interested. And so then that's good. So then that's okay, right? Yeah, exactly, Cheryl. So let's take this one more, I'll wrap it up with this. Whether you're a manual or a movement practitioner, if and when you are identifying that bones are not moving in their optimal, meaning I'm not stepping back the same with my left leg and my right leg, and you do know the muscles, hey Perry, that do the job, then what that does for you in your mind is, while you say out loud to your client, move your leg, blah, 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 what you're going to be checking for with your visual assessment, and maybe your manual assessment skills too, is not just did they move their leg, but did they move their leg with the muscle that's designed to do that job as the agonist of reciprocal inhibition? Because if you're not sure, it might not have happened. And if they moved over and over and over and over again without the main muscle to do the job, well, now we're back to the beginning of our conversation, which is feeling really fortuitous that we covered that. You are laying down patterns of doing that action wrong, meaning you're creating that compensatory pattern that, Gary, you asked us about. Like, do we stop using it when we're done with it? Not if we've laid down tracks. There's a whole return pattern that right? We don't have to consider every movement every time we make it once it's been made. The brain remembers it. The example I use all the time is going up a flight of stairs. You don't have to contemplate how to get that to happen. All the moving parts, your brain has it memorized. It's quiet in here. Are you all done? I will be leaving. I'm not all done. We have another 20 minutes, which I'm excited about. Okay, guys. So, vital to know the muscles that do the job. The job is the contraction, meaning muscles action is contraction. And when they contract, they move bone. If you're measuring someone's equality, usually on appendages in movement ideas, it's not that there's a problem with the bone. It's not even that there's a problem with the muscle. It's that it requires your intervention to equal it out. Equal out the movement by getting the muscles that's supposed to do the job to do the job and to make sure that things are symmetrical. You don't want to be complicit to someone else's compensatory patterning. Thanks, Cheryl. I love how you guys take care of each other. Such a good community. I dig it. And failing to engage the prime movers. So if a main muscle, so in reciprocal inhibition, the prime mover is the agonist. When we fail to engage the prime mover, the agonist to do the job, then we bypass the body's mechanics that were already built in on how to do that job, whatever that joint action is. And as soon as we are, I call it complicit, to bypassing the body's mechanics, we are also then complicit to their pain and discomfort or the setup to their injury. So knowing muscles is a game changer. And I know you guys hear me say that all the time. I do say it all the time for good reason. Because I went, some of you guys know this. I went to massage therapy school twice. I'm licensed in 3 different states. I learned a ton about muscles. I knew them like the back of my hand. I could tell you the names of the bony landmarks that they attach to. But none of that memorization taught me how they actually do the job. They taught me where they were. I sounded smart. I rattled off a lot of Latin, sounded like a brainiac, but it didn't actually click for me on the implication that that had on how someone was moving or how I needed to insert my knowledge into how they were moving so that they could move in a way that was ultimately pain-free. I didn't even know how they created the pain. I just knew the muscle that was in my hand to manhandle. So I say that with tons of respect for all of you who are manual practitioners who are like, Gina, I know muscles. I get it. I thought I did too. But we really want to know them by their implication. And I've said this to some of you guys too. Take notes feverishly and then do something with the notes, right? Actually apply this information. Don't just know it, because knowing it here is not the same as workshopping it out. It's just not. And we've said that, I think, every week now in Sacred Sacrum, which is running concurrently right now. We do training and then workshop and then training and then workshop. And after every workshop, people are like, oh my gosh, this material totally landed differently. Right. Because when you utilize it, it does land differently, even when your notes are perfect. So again, I had great notes on muscles. How they were actually showing up in the body and when they went awry was the next level. So that's why I appeal to you guys to really know the muscles that are doing the job. Okay, my friends. Open for you now. I've done all my talking until it's time for me to answer a question. Amin, all right, let me open the chat. Let's see, you guys are chatting. Amin says, about the brain, is it true that the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body and the left brain controls the right side of the body? It is true. And I'll just add to that, what was more fascinating for me was learning about the corpus callosum, which is the fibrous connection between both hemispheres. That's actually where the communicating is happening. So the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere on their own don't communicate to the opposite side of the body in the absence of that corpus callosum. I learned about that through one of the clients I had, young David. I used to take care of developmentally disabled children and adults, and he had all the parts that were gifted to all of us, with the exception of his corpus callosum, which meant he had zero function, which is mind-boggling, pun intended. I learned a lot from him. All right, what other questions do you guys have for me today? What questions do you have? How can I support you? Nothing? Nothing. We're done? No, never done, Rhonda's like, I'm just formulating it. I don't really, okay, go ahead.
So I'm just going back for a second for the compensation pattern versus recruitment.
Okay.
Recruitment was about power. Compensation pattern was about, I lost that word.
If I were going to highlight them like that, Rhonda, and thank you for bringing that up. It had a ton of context for us at the beginning. if I were going to put a one-word description on it so that I could start to see the difference between them, while there is a relationship between them, I would put compensation as a pattern and then recruitment as power, as you said.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, basically anytime the lever system's off or there's an internal misalignment, which we do in our method, it would be something that you would send out to chiropractic if you don't address that in your own practice yet. Anytime anything like that shows up, there is a compensation. Meaning, what I've already said, I'll say it in this context again and it'll click. We get to know the anatomy. We get to know how it's designed to work. Then we get to have a third body of information when it's gone awry. When it's gone awry, there's always compensatory action there. It has to, because it's gone awry. Charisse, what do you got?
How do you see the fascia and its role in all this too?
Did you say fascia? Your internet clicked just a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, how do
fascia.
I see fascia in the context of what specifically?
Well, it's how it plays with the muscles as well.
Oh my gosh, it has a direct connection, right? Because do you work with fascia, Charisse?
I work, yes, with many things. I'm a manual therapist, so
Okay,
body worker. I work with
love it.
structure and muscles and fascia.
Perfect. So you're right here with all of us. I love it. I'm glad you're here. So then you know, and the same things that you probably already know are the things I would say. Fascia, we have deep and superficial fascia. Fascia wraps around every muscle. When I teach muscles, I teach the fibers themselves of the muscles like spaghetti strands, and the fascia is the bag that wraps around the spaghetti strands, right? So you can't separate them. That said, they require different interventions to be addressed. So that skill set that we talked about, like once I see that there's a problem, what do I use? What skill do I have to address it? You get to know how they work, how they're wired, and then have the right skill and then address the compensation with the skill. So you probably already know this. Fascia doesn't need a whole lot of movement. It doesn't even need a whole lot of heat, but it does need at least room temperature or the temperature from your own hand. And then it needs to move to change shape, right? So just adding heat, like sitting in a steam room, it'll have an effect on the fascia, but until you move the muscles to do the job, the fascia hasn't changed. It just got softer for the moment. Like I use the analogy of like a butter stick. If I put a stick of butter that's cold out of the refrigerator on the counter, it still looks like the same shape that it was when it was in the fridge, but one is more malleable than the other, but it didn't change just because I warmed it up. So fascia requires that you take it out of the fridge. You don't have to put it on the campfire, on the bonfire, but you got to take it out of the fridge. And then you need to go back to this principle and move the muscle that's supposed to be doing the job for the fascia to be compliant. Yep, so they do work together. And then which order do you put them in? Did that answer the question for you, Charisse? Or do you have more to your question? Go for it.
I believe so. I have also found though, I can relax a muscle that is holding tension that is causing an issue with the movement of the bones. But I find sometimes I have to work with the fascia in order to get full release and allow for the movement to be more free.
Okay, what do you mean? How do you know you're working fascia versus muscle? What do you mean by that?
Well, I can get a muscle to relax, but its movement isn't where I want it to be. So then I go to the fascia and I actually work the fascia from the cranium. And because it has the spiral fascias, the fascia lines or something, I'll work with those and tap into the areas where it's still not moving freely, but the muscle is relaxed.
Mhm.
And I have found that it seems to, not all the time, but need that intervention to be addressed somehow.
Okay, and so then what are you doing all of that work for? What's the end goal?
To get free movement and get the client out of pain.
Yeah. So the work that I'm talking about today is once you have free movement and you get them out of pain, they don't magically get out of pain just because the muscle's back online.
Right. I understand that too.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they go home with homework.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Awesome. So did I answer your question for you?
Yes, thanks.
Yes. Okay, great. Any other questions? What other questions? What other questions do we have? How is it that a muscle contracts but no tension, Amin says? Cheryl, do you want to address this one? I'm totally putting you on the spot because I think you're ready for it.
How does the muscle contract with no tension? Well, Gina has said many times that stretching doesn't exist, but if we just sit here, I think we did this last week, didn't we? Where we can sit here and think about tensing our muscles and it can tense, right? So we have that ability to tense those muscles. So the question is, how can we do it without contracting? What was the question?
Movement.
Without movement. Yeah, well, we're not moving. And then there's the isometric where we can hold a muscle in a lengthened position or in any position, and we can lengthen and contract that muscle, but it's not moving. So
Bones aren't moving.
The bones aren't moving, so we're not contracting the muscle. I mean, I guess the muscle is still contracting though, right? I mean, I'm still giving it the message to contract. So it's contracting, but it's not moving.
Well, you're creating tension, but not contraction.
That is true. Yeah.
So that's the discernment, right? Just the difference that I mentioned earlier was that you can have tension and not contraction. Contraction is action. Action means joint action, which means things are moving. You can have tension in a muscle and it not move a joint to create a joint action.
Right.
Which is the type of contraction you were just talking to.
Right. The isometric, we're not changing the length of the muscle.
Or the joint.
Or the joint, right? But we have tension in it. So there is no movement. Same as if we sit here and contract our muscles just by telling them to contract. We're not moving and we're not changing the joint action or the muscle movement. Yeah.
Exactly. And the only other version, I mean, it seems like you were asking the question because they probably blurred together at the same time. You can have a muscle whose fibers are short that looks like the origin and insertion move towards each other, but there's no tension in that muscle. That's called being on the slack. Your psoas is probably on the slack right now. Probably everybody's here is on the slack. It's not actively flexing your hip, but yet the fibers are short because of the way we're sitting.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Got it. You're welcome. All right. What other questions do we have? I like that we're all focused on muscles and their effect on bones. I love it. What other questions do we have, guys? Got time for probably one more.
Well, I highlighted something that that you said, and it kind of clicked a little bit. When a muscle is tight and not short, it's a likely compensatory.
Because of the types of tightness. That's where that conversation went.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, I just heard it this time a little differently.
Oh, nice. Okay. When the penny drops, it drops.
That's a digestion.
Yes, I love it. Okay, good. Help your nervous system. So I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Lavenji? Has a question, but that's a whole new topic. My discovery was say it one more time.
Evgeny, you can call me Geny.
Geny? Okay, beautiful. Thanks for helping me with that. Your discovery was that pain might be caused by inflammation impacted by, and then he's gone, by improper nutrition patterns. It looks like you're on a great walk, Geny. It looks like it's sunny and beautiful there. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Caused by inflammation. Let me start over. My discovery was that pain might be, do you want to say your question out loud, Geny? Now that you can be here.
Yeah, actually, I noticed that actually I had that case with myself and my lower back pain. I tried every movement, treatments, and exercises, and the root cause was the inflammation caused by an improper nutrition. Actually, I went through cleansing, and only that, like after 3 or 4 days, pain gone. Meaning
Nice.
it is so complex that it's not only a movement or therapies or anything, but also nutrition and psychosomatics, which impacts how we
Beautiful.
feel, how patients may feel. It's
I
just full new topic, as I mentioned.
I love it though. It's so good. In fact, I really appreciate you bringing that up and knowing that. It's one of the reasons why I became certified as a gut health specialist, because I was noticing it wasn't that common, but when it was common, it was very clear that this was the issue, because there is so much connective tissue related to our gut health, right? The reason why our intestines don't end up in our throat when we do a cartwheel is because there's connective tissue holding them in place. When our gut health is imbalanced, the soft tissue structures in that same area are affected. And when those are affected, it's not musculoskeletal. It seems like it is. And that's how I, again, got into my journey down that path. I knew that the work I was doing for musculoskeletal was effective. I knew it. I had done it enough. I had practiced it enough. I'd have enough results. I'm not arrogant enough to think that I can do it with my eyes closed. I have to pay attention like you all do, but it wasn't even moving the needle. And I know that the work I do creates results. I'm positive. So I was like, it's got to be something else. What else could it be? And to your point, Genny, I started looking at the connective tissue in the area and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is gut health related. And I was already a Western herbalist. And then I went through the certification to do gut health. And now that's why I train those of you who've done the gut health training with me. That's the path. It went from musculoskeletal to gut health, back to the nervous system with the connection of the enteric nervous system. So I don't talk that much about that here on Tuesday training, but we could absolutely put that in the queue after the principles, after we've worked through the principles. Gut health is not just gut health, it's also for back pain. So thanks for bringing that up, Genny, for dropping that,
Thank you.
planting
It
that seed.
inspired me. It was discovery after 10 years of research. This year was discovery, so I opened a new community to connect practitioners in that. It's called Has in US. But yeah, I'm glad that you understand.
Yeah, beautiful. Wait, did you say you were in pain for 10 years?
Yeah, it was recurrent pain, different shape, but only 1 year changed this year. It was connected to nutrition, one of the components.
Okay, well, that's the only part of your story that I'm not happy about. So one of the things that I say when I'm training practitioners is it gets to be resolved, guys, quickly. Don't, we're spending people's lives by not resolving the pain permanently. That's why I'm a big fan of don't really even bother with the symptoms. If you're a symptom treater, when someone is a symptom treater, we are complicit to someone's pain. That could be someone like Genny saying for 10 years, this was a focal point for me. He doesn't get that time back. So we get to resolve musculoskeletal stuff quickly, really quickly, like 6 sessions or less quickly. And if it's not resolving, you just need more information, and then you need to apply that information. I promise you that's the math. It does not take 10 years to get someone out of musculoskeletal pain, including identifying this is not in my lane. You must go somewhere else, right? That's part of it. We call that partnering. It's a big value system inside our community. You got to partner with other people. You can't be everything to everyone. And if you think that you are, it's probably your ego thinking that. I don't do open heart surgery. I'm good with that. My ego doesn't need me to say I know that. I don't, but I know what I know. And you guys, we want to have that as our clarity and our clear limits. This is when I refer out. Whole other topic, which we've talked about in other client Q&A. All right, my friends, an hour goes by fast. We are back again next week for our next movement principle. I'm so excited to continue the journey with you because I know that they are game changers. I'm interested to hear how you guys apply this principle this week. I'd love for you guys to let me know. If you want to come back to the video on YouTube and leave your comments and let us know how you applied it, that would be delicious. I don't have a forum right now for you to all be leaving comments together, but we're working on that. That news will come later. So in the meantime, just keep me posted under the comment section of this video. And while you're there, give it a little like. I'd appreciate that too.